had a few people ask me to respond to this video by Sargon of Akkad entitled Nazis Are Bad. So I checked it out. It's a quick little video. And I might disappoint you, but I really don't see why more than a couple people were wanting me to respond to this video, because he said a lot of right things. He said them the wrong way, but he said a lot of right things. Of course, there was a lot of wrong in there as well, and we'll go through it and look at it. But I mean, there is, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not, a lot of truth in the accusations made against the Nazis and Hitler. So I get probably why some people didn't like the video, because he's trying to draw the parallels to the SJWs and Antifa of today. It's more of this virtue signaling. They've gone hardcore, the cucks and the charlatans and all these people on Twitter and all this shit have gone out of their way to virtue signal against anything masculine, united, and nationalistic as much as they can. So that comes with attacking fascism, attacking Nazism, and saying, no, Antifa is the real fascists. Nazis are the real lefties. They haven't learned anything, right? But nothing changes. Once again, conservatives haven't conserved a goddamn thing. As a matter of fact, they're habitual linebacker uppers. They're people you can just keep poking in the chest and making them walk backwards. Conservatives say, this is the line. God and Constitution says so. The left says, no, it's not. Push it back. Okay. And they push it back. So this is what these fools are doing now. They're virtue signaling their ass off and trying to say, you're the real Nazis. Please stop calling us Nazis. So that's the underlying principle underneath all this virtue signaling and trying to parallel Nazis and Antifa and all this shit. So let's get into the video.
Oh, hi there.
So we already see our first mistake here. He's reading Leonard Peikoff to get an opinion on Nazism. That's... And Leonard Peikoff was not only a worshiper of Ayn Rand, but also, like Ayn Rand, Jewish. So getting a capitalist, individualist Jew's opinion on the Third Reich and Hitler is kind of, it's like getting, a feminist opinion on masculinity, or a Muslim's opinion on bacon and pork chops, right? It's a lot of these people, when they criticize and attack these ideologies they have no idea about, they never go to the ideology themselves. They always go to the enemies of the ideology and read their interpretations and their definitions of said ideology. It's like someone trying to describe a house to you without ever going inside the house themselves and seeing. So that's already the first mistake there. Fuck you giving me a capitalist Jew's opinion on Nazism. Thank you. I already know where it's going to go. No reason to continue on from there. But he does. So let's listen.
I've been doing some reading, and I've discovered something I think you should know. The Nazis were bad. Let me explain to you why. Hitler was counting on a widespread anti-reason attitude, an attitude that no political party by itself could have created or sustained. In the field of epistemology, the Nazis were merely repeating and cashing in on the slogans of a 19th century intellectual movement, one which pervaded every country of Europe, but which had its centre in...
So he's trying to equate, well, maybe not him, maybe Peikoff, but he's reading from Peikoff, so we'll just say him. He's trying to attach the Hitler's ideology, the Nazi ideology, to Romanticism, and basically why he's trying to do that, or what he's trying to say, is that it was not a rational movement. It wasn't based on a rational cause. It was just essentially emotional. Now it gets a little confusing here, because he takes what I think has been shown to be a fundamental truth, and he attaches a falsity to it. The falsity being that the Nazi ideology was not reason. It didn't stem from reason. But passion of man. So we'll split this up because this we can see mass man is led by their passions more than anything else. But when we get into the reason of the Nazi ideology and how it came about, was it just dogmatic dog whistles to everyone and just getting people to blindly follow things they didn't understand or believe? No, it was a reactionary ideology, and it came about because, you have to set the scene. Revolution was going on in Germany. The communists were attacking. They had taken over in Russia. They were spreading all over. There was death, violence, war on the streets. They had an effeminate government, a republic like the shit that exists today. Same kind of thing. And, oh shit, then same kind of thing. You had a radical left gunning for that government. Then a reactionary right came. That's still the piece missing in the puzzle today, but to be continued. So anyways, you had that going on in Germany. So this ideology came about, and what it did was unite all the other different right-wing ideologies that were fractured themselves. And they all came underneath Hitler through, his charisma, his willpower, his electricity, his magnetism, whatever it is. They got that made him good at what he was doing. Anyways, if instead of reading Peikoff, you can read Hitler himself, his speeches. If you want to hear the reasons, he explains well. Mein Kampf, he also goes into a lot of detail on his reasons. And then, those reasons could be criticized and debated over, but they're reasons. You also can hear him in his private conversations speaking about his reasons for his beliefs and their ideology. I mean, there's no short of him speaking on that, but I understand you might not have the time. Who has the time to read all these books about this? I just want to read one book by a capitalist Jew and he'll tell me what Nazism was, and that's good enough for me. Well, if we truly are seekers of knowledge and understanding, that is not good enough. You have to go inside the house, look around for yourself before you can describe it to anybody. So, being that most people do not have the time, thankfully, we made videos on all this. In the links, Hitler's Philosophy, hour-long video, breaks down his philosophy, his philosophical views, what he believed, why he believed it. Yes. So then you can argue with what he actually believed. We have also, why did Hitler hate Jews? That's typically why he's called evil, because there's all kinds of misinformation about why the Germans singled out the Jews as enemies. Well, guess what? He did a lot of writing and talking and, believe it or not, thinking on the matter, and had a very intelligent opinion on it because he was very well learned on the topic, which you would know if you took the time to actually read and see what he said and why he said what he did about Jews. So thankfully, once again, I took the times to take everything he said that he's written or spoken himself and put it together so you, the viewer, can see for yourself and make your own decision from the actual material, not other people's interpretation of it. So you could find that video in my... Oh, hold on. No, they banned that video. They banned it twice. But guess what? You could still find it. Someone else uploaded it. And it'll always come back. Why did Hitler hate Jews? A 2-hour video that is your definitive answer in the links. So there was reason. There was reason to their beliefs. They pointed out over and over again their political philosophy. What their ideology for their state was and why they wanted it. They explain it. Program of an NSDAP. The primer, this is what they were teaching the kids in the Hitler Youth. Why they were teaching them that. A good quick breakdown for someone who doesn't have the time. Hitler's Revolution. Well, details. Why they believed it. But guess what? For those who don't have the time, once again, I took the pain for you and put it out there for you. In the links, the program of the NSDAP. What was National Socialism? Yes, and you'll see the points and why they believed it, why they wanted it. Then see how irrational it was.
Greatest influence in Germany. This movement, the defiant rejection of the Enlightenment spirit, is called Romanticism. The Romanticists held that reason is a faculty restricted to a surface world of appearances and incapable of penetrating to true reality. Man's source of knowledge, they declared, is feeling, or passion, or intuition, or faith.
So what they're trying to do, and what they're falsely doing, is the person reading it and the person that wrote it is trying to label and package up and store away what Nazism was underneath one specific little label, and they're calling it Romanticism. So this is inaccurate. Most things in life you cannot package up in one definitive term. Everything is more complex than that. Everything is more of a mixture of so many different things going on. So as soon as someone tries to sell you some shit and tries to reduce a whole fundamental way of life to one single definition, man, come on. You know that's too damn simplified to be anything near the truth. And that's the case with this. So now what he's speaking about with man and their passion, this is true for mass man. This is true for mass man. I don't even think this is debatable. Mass man does live off his urges. And no one knows this better than the capitalist that Ayn Rand and Peikoff, and I assume Sargon. I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea what he believes, but they know this better than anyone else because that's how capitalism keeps going, by preying off of man's primal desires. So there's plenty of stuff out there that detail widely, how mass man thinks. You're never going to hear anyone speaking to mass groups of people and speaking and using the scientific process or the scientific method to get an idea across. It's just not going to work. Half of the people would fall asleep listening before the guy got to the point, right? You know how it works. There's methodology to this, and it's from everything from politicians to salesmen. You speak to the passions of man. This is a fundamental reality. To deny this is just completely retarded. There's nothing in history and there's nothing in current day that would dispute that mass man is more influenced by the desires and passion than the intellect. Now, each individual, it's a different story. But when we're talking about mass man, this crowd psychology happens. And like I said, there's plenty of stuff out there to see this take place. If we know about the Frankfurt School and the methods they created, or they didn't create, but coined and brought about and implemented and got direct, change from. The advertisers will tell you themselves. Edward Bernays, I mean, come on, he wrote the book on how to sell things to people. Lastly, got Gustave Le Bon's great book, The Crowd. And there's a link to the video on the book in the description. So yes, mass man is moved by the passions. That's a fundamental reality. It's not an insult. It's not an opinion. I mean, this is it. This is reality. For whatever reason, debate the reasons, but that's the reality. So he's trying to tie Nazis into one single term. Come on. That's bullshit. You have to know that's bullshit. Can't just say, oh, they were romanticism. They just played on people's, primal urges, or this played on people's emotions, and they didn't play on anything logical. They didn't use the scientific method. No, they did. It's in their political beliefs. They had a very logical and rational ideology. And a lot of it was reactionary to what was going on in that time. So it had to be rational and logical because it had to work. So the ideals and belief were very logical and rational, but the methodology of getting information out there to attract people, there's a certain process to it. There's a certain way you package it and put it out there with any message. So that always has to speak more to man's desires and emotions. So you got to take what any good propaganda person is, and I don't know, I'm sure the skeptic community has no idea what propaganda. I'm sure it's evil word to them. It's just a process of getting information out there, truth or lies. And the process of propaganda, or the challenge of making good propaganda, is being able to take all those logical and rational beliefs, package them up so every man can understand it at a passionate level. The fact that is the most effective way to get messages out there doesn't mean the message itself is an emotional or a rational message. As far as trying to label Nazism, it's just romanticism. It's just trying to downgrade it. Once again, he's trying to attach it to the SJWs and Antifa of today. And since they primarily run off of that emotion, is trying to say, you're the Nazis, you're the Nazis. This is intellectually dishonest. You can't package it up, label it, and store it away in something you can attack. Create a monster to attack, attach it to the people. Oh, hold on. Who else does that? Oh, see how that game goes? Yeah. So it's bullshit. Don't believe anyone that tries to simplify a whole cultural revolution into one single philosophical term.
Man in this view is not a rational being. He is in essence an emotional being, and he must seek the truth and live his life accordingly. Hostile to the cold objectivity of the scientific method, the Romanticists turned to avowedly subjective.
They were hostile to the scientific method. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to even make these claims. And it's I wish these people would, use the scientific method themselves on subjects like what the Nazis believed, on subjects like the Jewish question. I wish they would really put these issues under a microscope, analyze it before they come to a conclusion about it. Yeah, they might be afraid of the conclusions they come to, so it's better just to dismiss or to ridicule or attack or misrepresent things.
Fantasies, priding themselves on their absorption of an inner world of intense feeling, scornful of the shallowness of Aristotelian logic, they flaunted the fact that the universes they constructed were brimming with depth, i.e. with contradictions, A's endlessly blending into non-A's and vice versa. Contemptuous of the static world of Enlightenment thinkers, a world of stable, enduring entities, the Romanticists denied the existence of entities. Their dynamic universe was a resurrection of the ancient theory of Heraclitus. Reality is a stream of change, without entities, or of action without anything that acts. It is a wild, chaotic flux, which the orderly Enlightenment mind cannot grasp. There is no such thing as truth, explains Hitler, either in the moral or the scientific sense.
So I had to look up that quote because it wasn't familiar to me. Anyone that studies Hitler knows he believed in absolute truth, and that was in the laws of nature. So it just didn't seem right. I mean, it's anyways, it comes from the book Hitler Speaks, a series of political conversations with Adolf Hitler. And this book was written by Hermann Rauschning, and he allegedly had these conversations in 33 and 34, he said, with him, until he took off to America and became an anti-Nazi and wrote this Allied propaganda bullshit, which no historian will cite. No even credible, even like the historians that are kind of negative towards Hitler, they won't use this book because it's been debunked. It's bullshit. You can wipe your ass with it, but to take actual quotes from it and use it like it's truth, you can't do that with it because it's been debunked. So that's a bullshit quote.
Or as Goebbels puts the point, important is not what is right, but what wins.
I'm not even going to take the time to look up that quote after that last debacle, but hey, that sounds like something Goebbels would say, to be honest with you. He was a lot more Machiavellian than Hitler was. So I don't know. Maybe Hitler could have learned a little bit of that. But yeah, so I don't know. But still, it's still irrelevant to the Third Reich's policy and Adolf Hitler, cherry picking a quote from Goebbels, which may or may not be legit after we just saw, he's quoting from debunked books already. So
the corollary of such an attitude is unceasing intellectual flux. Pragmatism leads to relativism. An idea the pragmatist holds must be judged as true or false according to its utility in a particular situation. What works today in one situation need not work tomorrow in another. Thus, truth is mutable. There are no rigid principles, not in any field. There are no absolutes. In essence, it made no difference to the Nazi leaders whether a man obeyed them for dogmatist or for pragmatist reasons, because of his commitment to God in heaven or to the Volk on earth. What mattered was that he obeyed.
He obeyed what? The laws? Yeah, duh. What society doesn't demand you obey the laws? Yeah, no. Those damn Nazis making people follow laws. What's wrong with them?
But the Nazis preferred a man to obey for both reasons together. Dogmatism gave the Führer's words the aura of supernatural authority. Pragmatism gave him all the flexibility he could want. The combination made it possible to claim that, when the Führer speaks, his statement is a holy truth to be revered, until he contradicts it, whereupon his new statement is to be revered. Implicit in dogmatism and in pragmatism is a third theory, part metaphysical, part epistemological, that is fundamental to the Nazi viewpoint: subjectivism. Racial subjectivism holds that a man's inborn racial constitution determines his mental processes.
So now he's arguing against race realism, saying race realism doesn't exist. I mean, there's stuff out there people can read. I mean, do you honestly think someone denying race realism actually took the time to look into any of the scientific claims of race realism? I would doubt it. So he's trying to say the Nazis were irrational because they believed in race realism. They believed this crazy thought that because people evolved together in their groups, separate from other groups, that these groups that evolved so long in different climates, separated from each other, may have adapted different personalities and different cultures. Oh, what a crazy thought. No, they all universally evolve the same way. So, yeah, they're attacking race realism with, now, why would a Jewish writer, of course, right? Why would a Jewish writer deny this race realism? Oh, especially when we're speaking about Hitler, Nazism, claims they made. So, right? Once again, it's going to the feminists and asking them, what do you think about masculinity?
His intellectual outlook, his thought patterns, his feelings, his conclusions, and that these conclusions, however well established, are valid only for members of a given race who share the same underlying constitution. Knowledge and truth, one Nazi explains, are peculiarities originating in definitive forms of consciousness, and hence attuned exclusively to the specific essence of their mother consciousness. On this view, each race creates its own truth, and there is no such thing as the truth in any issue, the truth which corresponds to the facts. There is only truth relative to a group, truth for us versus truth for them.
So hold on, is he denying this? Is he denying different people have different cultures and different ethics within these cultures? I don't know, does this guy speak out against the Muslim refugees and the basically invasion of Europe with Muslims? Does he? And if he does, why would he? If everyone has the same ethics, if all peoples have the same cultures and ethics, why, if ethics are universal, why would you worry about the Muslims? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's fine with it, which is even worse. It's like, my goodness. But I don't think anyone would survive long in something like, skeptic community. I mean, you can survive long with avoiding race realism and all that stuff, but something as blatant as the cultural invasion going on. Yeah, I don't think so. So I don't get it. Is he trying to deny that? Because once again, that's a reality. Each race of people, they have their own cultures and they have their own ethics through those cultures. Some things we might see as repulsive, right? And some things are completely legal, like, homosexuals in America parade around half naked on the streets to show their pride for some odd reason. And in Saudi Arabia, they'll throw your ass off a roof for doing some shit like that. So, we got two different, and a lot more between all the different peoples and whatnot. Or unless he's implying everyone should have his universal ethics. If that's the case being made, then, speaking like a true globalist, true internationalist, make everyone think like you. But I think that's common knowledge. Cultures are different. Peoples are different. And people do have different ethical values depending on where you're at and where you're from. I mean, is that being disputed here? Really? Once again, you got to look at the person making the claim here. Hitler and the Nazi Party and many of the Germans had said the Jews were innately different people than the Germans. So they had different values. And the Jews didn't share the culture and traditions of Germans. So they sought to change it. And we kind of see the same thing if we look at a lot of institutions that have changed or attacked the culture of America and the traditions of America. You'll see it's heavily Jewish as well. So the claim was made that they were innately different people from Germans. Therefore, they shouldn't be German citizens because they were actually harming what Germany was, the traditions and culture of it. So since that's the case, and that's the claim being made by the Germans, of course, this Jewish writer is going to attack that and say, no, everyone's the same. And, we all have the same ethics, when that is not the case. In fact, a great book by Maurice Samuel, You Gentiles, goes into great depth about that. Another great book, Sex and Character by Otto Weininger, goes into great detail about that as well. The innate differences between Jews and Gentiles, both Jewish intellectuals. Unheroic Conduct by Daniel Boyarin, another Jewish intellectual, speaks about the innate differences between Jews and Gentiles. So Ludwig Wittgenstein even speaks about it, famous Jewish philosopher. So yeah, it's of course this person's going to try to dismiss the claims of ethnicities being different from people in some way, different from each other in some ways, because that was the accusations the Germans made against the Jews of Germany, saying, hey, look, you're not German. You refuse to assimilate. You're continuing with your Jewish ways of life and putting them upon the German people instead of adapting to the German culture and respecting that and upholding the traditions. So that was the claim, and that's why they wanted Jews out of Germany. So, yeah, once again, you got to look at the source you're getting the information from. Once again, go in the house, look around, then make some decisions. Don't stare at it from the outside and decide whether you're going to buy it or not.
Altruism is the view that man must place others above the self as the fundamental rule of life, and that his greatest virtue is self-sacrifice on their behalf. Altruism does not mean kindness, benevolence, sympathy, or the like, all of which are possible to egoists. The term means otherism. It means the welfare of others must become the highest value and ruling purpose of the man's existence.
So now he's just attacking the concept of the common good, which is a whole other debate in itself. But to ridicule it and just say it's mindless message of the common good is ridiculous. He brought up Aristotle earlier, but like Aristotle, I too am a fan of the idea of the common good. So he's not a believer in the common good. He's out for himself, essentially. That's his prerogative, I guess. But I would disagree with that, and I would disagree with trying to lump that in as a part of his whole theory and explanation of how irrational the Nazis were. All right, let's jump to the end here because it just kind of goes on more of the waxing poetic just for the sake of waxing poetic, because this author here, he's basically trying to make a philosophical argument against Nazism of all false premises and even flat out false quotes. Let's get to the synopsis of the video.
So let's summarize the Nazi worldview. It is the rejection of the Enlightenment, the rejection of objective truth.
Wrong and wrong for reasons already stated throughout the video, but they didn't reject all aspects of the Enlightenment. Once again, their doctrine was based off of reactionary logic and rationalism, and they had objective truths as well. Now, apparently these objective truths aren't melding with your objective truths, but they had their race reality, the reality of the German people, of the German ethnicity, of the German culture. They felt these were all expressions of the laws of nature. And this was, if we're going to call Hitler the figurehead of ideology of Nazism, was at the heart of his belief. And once again, video on Hitler's religion in the links.
The rejection of reason and the embracing of feelings and of subjective truth, in fact of racial truths that are only relevant to the race in question. It is the demand for complete obedience, regardless of the reason why, but preferably for absolute dedication to the cause.
Because having a cause and having dedication are both bad things.
And it is the moral sanctioning of violence towards anyone who might oppose these methods.
So you got a cause, you got dedication to that cause, but then you got people that want to stop that cause. They want to crush it. And you are just supposed to let them do it. Because that's what's morally right. We wonder why the West is in the predicament it's in now.
That finally makes the Nazis so terribly dangerous. And I think it's unavoidable for any political philosophy that follows these principles to end up every bit as oppressive, violent, and bloody as the Nazis themselves.
Ooh, take that, lefties. You're Nazis. Ooh, see how far that campaign takes you guys. I swear these people just make the same mistakes over and over again. You can't virtue signal to your enemies. That's just showing weakness. And when they see that weakness, they're just going to keep attacking. Keep fucking attacking you. You're going to take it over. Matter of fact, Saul Alinsky, one of their ideologues will tell you that. Link in the description once again. Yes. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. So, I guess I'll summarize. He read a quote from a capitalist Jewish individual about collectivist Germans who tried to expel Jews out of their country. And the capitalist Jew used a lot of false premises and made a lot of attacks to try to philosophically defend, but dishonestly explain that any motives by any actions taken by the Germans against the Jewish population were wrong and irrational, when that is not the case. It was very logical, it was very rational, and the case was made. For 15 years, they said, why, we want Jews out of here, explained why. So, when they try to simplify it like that and attack it and, create these false premises and attack it through the false premises like the lefties do when they call everyone a Nazi, it's the same shit. It's the same shit he was trying to virtue signal against, but then he kind of did the same. He read from someone doing the same method that they're doing against people like him right now. So on topics like Hitler and the Third Reich, and say, oh, this was good, this was bad. I think topics like this, it just goes beyond the questions of good and evil.